of Mexican immigrants who story is not preserved in many ways, and of a restaurant. And it's an example of many places that you probably have in your neighborhood. It could be a restaurant, a bar, a cafe, the hair salon you go to. But it's a place where people feel comfortable. This was a restaurant where people were doing much more than just putting food in their mouths. They were building community. I call these places urban anchors. Yes, restaurants are economic actors. They're economic institutions. But if we treat restaurants more expansively, if we look at the social and cultural processes that go on in restaurants, the affective ties, the ways that community is built when people meet, eat, drink, laugh, gossip, sometimes argue, make up, bump into friends, we start to see a city not as city planners imagined it, but as people actually use the space. So often when we want our students to connect to history, we have them connect to this version in which they're so alienated from it and it's layers removed. This is an example of how, and I have curriculum for it as well, of how people can research their areas, the institutions that are important to them, immigration patterns, so that they get a sense of where they fit in their California history or their state history. It's a way in which we also see that immigrants, this is a time in which Mexican immigrants are invisible labor. We see it in every advertisement. And yet, this is a place, a restaurant, where they could actually be visible once again. They can claim space. They can meet one another. They can unfold. They can belong. They can speak out. In one of my interviews, one of the things that has stayed with me is that I asked, when you went on Sundays, what was the crowd like? And one of my interviewees said, it was Sunday, so there were always families, so you could always see people making the sign of the cross before they ate. And you could always hear people speaking in Spanish. For this reason, both my grandmother, Doña Natalia, and everybody talks about her as a very reserved person, so throughout the book I call her Doña Natalia. For this reason, I call her and the people that work there and the customers that came placemakers, because they were able to stay tethered to their communities back home in Nayarit, Mexico, and Echo Park, both through culinary terms, but also by establishing community. So they were placemakers who established urban anchors.